If you've just joined me, I'm Giles Brandreth. This is LBC 1152. I've got somebody quite unique on the Stairway to Heaven tonight. He is the world's first and foremost consulting detective. Often it's said to be the Abbey National Buildings. Some aging clerk who replies to correspondence, and a couple of doors down there is a sort of Sherlock Holmes museum which has a kind of fake room or rooms.
So several rooms, in fact, yes, a whole suite of rooms, and I have been told that they are really quite authentic. I understand there is somebody in this financial institution who is employed primarily to respond to letters which are sent from all over the world with problems which they would like me to try to solve for them.
So the place that you'd most miss would be your rooms in Baker Street?
Oh, but of course, yes. 221B Baker Street. My chemical bench, the scene of many malodorous experiments, my index files, invaluable notes, commonplace books, and a catalogue of biographies. Oh, yes, 221B Baker Street.
Very good. And you lived there alone, or the Mrs. Hudson, was she resident, or did she just come into...
No. Mrs. Hudson was most definitely resident and looked after me quite splendidly. She was a dear, kind lady and put up with a great deal of, well, I think she would call it rudeness, frankly, from me, but she was very kind and generous and looked after me splendidly. I will not have a word said against Mrs. Hudson.
And tell me, what is the pet you would most miss? Did you keep animals?
Pet? I've never kept a pet. I have, of course, dealt with a lot of animals in my work. I mean, I have dealt with snakes, slithering down bell ropes, deadly jellyfish, a giant rat from Sumatra, and of course, there was always and above all the hound of the Baskervilles. Not that one could call him a pet.
Much remembered this year, of course, the centenary of the publication of The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Indeed.
Did you feel that Watson's accounts of your adventures together were accurate on the whole?
There's a slight bone of contention about that. I mean, my cases were frequently experiments and deep scientific analysis, and Watson chose to present them as stories with drama and romance. A lot of this was actually not to my liking, but in fact, I am pleased to a degree that the record has been made, if not perhaps exactly as I would have chosen to make it.
What would you be glad to leave behind?
All this, the vulgarity of this modern world. Motor cars, cinemas, tarmac-adamant roads, electric lighting. Where is my world of cobbled streets, hansom cabs, 6 deliveries of post a day, and a criminal genius worthy of my mettle?
6 deliveries of post a day. This is a fantasy land. Is that what was 100 years ago?
Not a fantasy, Mr. Brandreth, a fact. 6 deliveries of post a day. You could put a letter in a post box at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and would be delivered to a room on the other side of London at 8 o'clock in the evening. With total reliability.
Those were the days.
They were.
And who are you speaking of as the criminal genius worthy of your mettle? This is the great Moriarty.
Moriarty. Professor James Moriarty.
With whom you had this almighty struggle on the Reichenbach Fall.
We did indeed, we did. That is a very long and complex story with a rather surprising resolution.
Yes, because you managed to leap from the jaws of death. Well, look, Sherlock Holmes, we get you to the summit of the staircase, we bang on the gates of heaven, they swing open, and there is your guardian angel. How does Sherlock Holmes picture his guardian angel?
Pragmatically, I would say, with a deerstalker, a magnifying glass, and a pipe, of course. No doubt, should I inquire how long I should be around, he'll say, eternally, my dear Holmes.
You and your guardian angel go on a tour of heaven, and you end up at the movie house. There is a cinema where they show films in heaven, the heavenly Odeon, and you can see a picture. What would you like to see?
Well, certainly not myself. No one has ever played me effectively on screen. I should hate to see one of my cinematographic representations. However, Conan Doyle did make I believe what is called a film interview in 1928 for some organization called Fox Movietone News, and he talked about me at great length. I think I should like to to see the old boy again and hear what he had to say on that film.
Conan Doyle, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who created Sherlock Holmes, and in fact created the character, I think I'm right in saying, portrayed more frequently on the silver screen than any other character ever in the history of world literature.
Well, I am flattered, Mr. Brandreth, that you should say that. It was not a fact known to myself.
And first, of course, you were first impersonated on the stage by an actor called William Gillette.
Indeed.
Who I think was American, but did it with a perfect English accent. If you've just joined me, I'm Giles Brandreth. This is LBC 1152. I've got somebody quite unique on the Stairway to Heaven tonight. He is the world's first and foremost consulting detective. His name is Sherlock Holmes. And after the 6 o'clock news, I'm going to discover who he'd like to meet now that I've taken him to heaven via the Stairway to Heaven. Stay tuned. This is Giles Brandreth on LBC this Sunday and every Sunday. It's time for the news. But none of them, I think, really can compete with the character I have with me this evening, who is somebody who is truly world famous. His name is Sherlock Holmes. His reputation is known to one and all. And he has reached heaven with me. We've just left the heavenly Odeon, where he chose to see a Fox Movietome News film interview made in 1928 of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle talking about Sherlock Holmes. Now you walk the ramparts, Sherlock Holmes, and meet one of the great figures of history. Who would you choose to encounter?
I think there can only be one possible one in the context of my existence. It can be only Professor James Moriarty, the greatest criminal mastermind the world has ever known, a man for whom I had a certain grudging respect. He was indeed, without doubt, the Napoleon of crime. Our personal score, has been settled and is in the past, but I am still and will always be deeply intrigued by his phenomenal brain.
So you can be fascinated by somebody who is fundamentally evil, can you?
Indeed I can. You see, genius can turn one of two ways, and he had chosen the dark, sinister path. And it was a cause of great stress and anxiety to me in tracking him down.
Okay, well, there's a cabaret room in heaven, and you can have, as a companion, anybody you like, anybody you want, who is in heaven. It's got to be somebody who's no longer alive. Who would you choose to have dinner with in heaven?
I would choose good old Watson, of course. Ha! What better companion could one have? The one fixed point in a changing age. You see, without Watson, my life would have been, less than half as happy, thrilling, or successful. He was a modest fellow who hid his considerable candescence under that proverbial bushel.
Except you say that, but was he a little bit simple-minded? Because he never seemed to get the answers to anything, or was he a bit self-deprecating to allow you to claim all the glory?
Well, I think, Mr. Brandreth, you are in error. John Watson worked with a genius of unparalleled brilliance, and I think Watson's skills were quite considerable as an average human being, but set against those of his companion, if I may say modestly, they would, of course, appear far less important.
Okay, I get where you're coming from, and I can almost anticipate, consequently, what you and Watson would have as your cabaret. You could have entertainment of any kind. What do you choose to have? From the whole history of the world, what will you have?
Well, I can tell you now without hesitation. There is a brilliant one-man play which has been written about me. It has been written by an actor called Stuart Davies, who knows everything there is to know about me and my career. And the brilliant and wonderful actor who is playing me in this one-man show is called Roger Llewellyn. He does a wonderful version of me.
He sounds Welsh.
He is Welsh. He is from the valleys of South Wales. But you would never know it from his performance as Sherlock Holmes.
And what is his track record? What will we have seen in it?
Let me see. He went to RADA. He trained at RADA many years ago, and he was lucky enough to work for several years with the Royal Shakespeare Company and has appeared in West End musicals and leading classical roles all over the country, and an enormous amount of work on that television. television screen.
I call it radio with ice train.
Indeed. Well, of course, in this play, which is called Sherlock Holmes: The Last Act, has great affinities to radio because this actor, Roger Llewellyn, plays me, and in the course of the play, another 11 people. Therefore, it requires the audience to contribute a great deal from their imaginations, much like radio, where it is commonly said the scenery is better than on the cinema screen. In this play, the audience have to contribute a great deal from their imaginations, and therefore feel that they are contributing towards the evening.
And if people want to see Sherlock Holmes on the stage, where do they have to go?
They have to go simply to the Wimbledon Studio Theatre from Wednesday, the 21st of November, this coming Wednesday, until Saturday, the 24th, with a matinee on the Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Ah, and what time in the evening is it?
It is on at 7:30 in the evening.
And they get, as it were, Sherlock Holmes talking about Sherlock Holmes.
They get an in-depth analysis of the mind of this extraordinary creature, which is the way they describe me. I mean, I'm far too modest to accept that. But it is an in-depth analysis and a research into the background, the childhood, the history, and the relationship that he had with women, with Watson, and indeed with his 7% solution, all of which things contributed to make this, as they say, unique character.
A relationship with women, does that feature much in the stories?
It features very significantly in relation to the woman. I always refer to Irene Adler as the woman. You see,
she was an actress, a singer?
She was a wonderful singer. She had a wonderful voice, and she was the only woman who did not exactly best me, but gave me a very, very hard task to win my case. For me, she transcended all that cliched nonsense of romance. I have never worshipped at the altar of romance.
And this Roger Llewellyn, who does this Sherlock Holmes one-man show, he travels the world, does he?
I believe.
Exploiting your genius.
Indeed he does.
Where's he been?
On the back of me. He has been all over Canada. I think he spent 2 months in Canada last year. He has been in sellout performances in the city of New York. He has been to Detroit in Michigan. He has been to Hong Kong, Bangkok, Singapore. Is due to go to the west coast of America next year, and is looking forward very much to a week in the south of France in January.
How extraordinary. This is Sherlock Holmes groupies all over the world coming to see Sherlock Holmes alone on stage.
Well, they're not groupies. They are very intelligent, articulate, interested people.
Okay. And if they want to see it this week, it's from this Wednesday evening, the Wimbledon Theatre Studio. And do you happen to have a telephone number about you?
I believe there is a telephone number which is 020-8540-0362. For safety, I'll repeat that. 020-8540-0362.
Okay, in your day, of course, it would have been Baker Street 1, 2, 3, 4.
Indeed it would.
Or even, I remember things like Welbeck and Mayfair.
Yes, the good old days.
Oh. Okay, Sherlock Holmes, you have one last wish. Before we bring you back to Earth, one final wish. You can have yourself as Cabaret. I think it's a little bit vain, because you were. Sherlock Holmes was enormously vain. You might have wished to have Irene Adler sing for you as a Cabaret.
Indeed. If one were given a second option, I think, obviously the performance by Roger Llewellyn would have to be first, but other than that, Irene Adler singing, certainly. But if I were to start all over again, I would like to, I would like to relive all the excitement of being the world's first consulting detective, the last and highest court of appeal. I mean, what is the point of being unique if there is no one to... What is the point? Watson, is that you? Excuse me, Brandreth. Cabot!
On LBC, 11:52 a.m. Sunday with Giles Brandreth.
Well, that's Sherlock Holmes' unusual character, isn't it? I better get down to the Studio Theatre in Wimbledon to catch the one-man Sherlock Holmes show on from this Wednesday until the weekend. There's a matinee on Saturday as well at 3 p.m. It sounds rather engaging.